asking, like, how do you stay updated about all these new trends in the gaming industry?
Okay, so this is something I kind of, it's become such a habit that I kind of don't do it very consciously.
Mm-hmm.
But I do try to, read up sometimes, of course, voluntarily. But, there will be certain things I miss and I have to read up. But in general, since I was in high school, I would be keeping up with, the latest gaming news. I'd be browsing a lot of popular video game sites.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be talking and spending time in communities where there were other, you know, gamers, and we'd be talking about new games and the games that we played. So this was a very common thing for me. So I've been in that habit since then, and I still stay in touch with a lot of my friends who play games, and they generally share something, or sometimes I'd be coming across something on Twitter
Mm-hmm.
or or any other social media website, and I'd be sharing it with my friends, and they'll be sharing something else. It keeps going on, and it's
Oh.
kind of a habit at this point, and to keep up with stuff, and it just happens. And sometimes I do. The industry is much bigger than it was in the past, so I have to
Mm-hmm.
sometimes consciously start reading up on different news on the different sides of the industry, especially on mobile.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very easy for me to keep up with news on console and PC, but it's not so easy for me to keep up with mobile because a lot of my communities that I spend time with are PC and console players. I
Oh,
don't spend time with mobile players as much,
okay.
but I do. There are lots of websites like uh, Deconstructor of Fun where they break down different mobile games that were successful, and they look at why it was successful, or if it was a flop game, why was it flop, even though it's a really popular game. So I look at websites like these to read up and understand the industry better and what makes certain games tick.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Which is, if you look at my browser, uh, my Firefox browser, you will see like a huge list of websites, news websites on the bookmarks,
Oh my God.
and there are probably hundreds of bookmarks that I haven't read yet in my Firefox, the bookmark folder.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like that's kind of daunting to think about.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is like I'm asking about your personal opinion. So who is the best game designer in the industry currently, like according to you?
There's designers who have expertise on different areas and different platforms, and I don't really think there's a best as such. Everyone's an expert in their own field, and and game development as well. It's not. There's many moving parts when we're building games, and the designer of course has the vision, but is definitely going to need a team, a publisher, and they're going to need decent financial backing. So it's very difficult to credit the success of a game to one person, but
Mm-hmm.
there will be certain favorites in terms of design
Yes,
that I can tell you, but
yes.
not.
My
I
next
can't really say. I
my
can't
next
really say
question is that
who's
because
best.
you're being very diplomatic, I thought I would ask your favorite.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I have to think for a bit. I do like Hideo Kojima's earlier projects.
Mm-hmm.
His new projects are also interesting, but they were not as interesting as his earlier games, like the Metal Gear Solid series, Snatcher, Police Knots.
Mm-hmm.
They were, very interesting in terms of the exploration of uh, very narrative focused and mechanically unique games.
Okay.
So Hideo Kojima is one interesting designer that I usually keep up with, and he's a very popular guy too in
Mm-hmm.
the industry. And I guess, yeah, that's one person off the top of my head as
Oh,
of now.
yeah, got it.
Yeah,
And what do you think are the qualities that a game designer would need to, be in this industry and survive? Because we can deliver good stuff initially. Maybe, once a person starts off, they'll be very enthusiastic and they'll deliver good stuff. But later on, that's when, it hits them that they can't really keep up with certain trends or whatever. So what are the qualities which would, define a good game designer and help them survive in this industry? What do you think?
I think that game design is a very interesting area
Mm-hmm.
where it's essential to get as much experience in as possible. Especially when you're early on in the industry, and get into whatever interesting project you find where you have the chance to work on, you know, games where you can learn a lot.
Okay.
Like, for example, Adventure Time, I was still very early on in my project, in my career, and but I still, I got a chance to work on almost every aspect of the game design, and I learned a lot. And when I say you learn a lot, you have to learn a lot. What I really mean is that you have to make a lot of mistakes,
Okay.
and the more mistakes you make, the more you learn from these, and the more you avoid repeating those. And that's an essential. It just kind of applies to almost everything, I
Mm-hmm.
suppose. But the gist of it is that keep working on more and different kinds of games. Figure out what makes games stick, and figure out your place, and figure out what your strengths are, and how else do I put this?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I have another question that's coming into my head. So
Yeah,
you've been in this industry for 8 years now, right?
yeah.
So you would like, how does it work for you? Like, do you know intuitively that this game is gonna click in the market and this game is not gonna do so well? Like, do you have such intuition? Because let's say like nobody really thought that the games like Angry Bird or Temple Run
Hmm.
sort of develop this craze
Yeah,
going forward.
yeah,
Nobody really,
yeah,
like, even when I played those games, I
yeah.
don't really think that I really enjoyed playing them, but I didn't understand the hype around such games.
Okay, okay. Well, I suppose the main thing here is the crucial thing rather is that when Angry Birds and Temple Run were first out,
Mm-hmm.
the mobile game space at least was very different from how it is now,
Okay.
and it is also there were not something a lot of people had seen by then,
Yeah.
and you would see that those games are still something hugely downloaded even to this day. So they
Mm-hmm.
built that reputation by coming in early,
Mm-hmm.
and some of it is that where you're coming in early, and this is something no one's ever tried before.
Yeah.
But now it's that still applies, where you're showing something that's never been tried before. But as of now, the industry is going in a more different direction, in the sense that it's not. So the image around the standard image around a mobile game is that it's very simplistic in
Mhm.
terms of the visuals or in terms of the mechanics.
True.
But right now people are looking for more and more out of their mobile game basically. Uh, 10 years ago, a game like Genshin Impact was probably was unimaginable 10 or 15 years ago,
Mhm.
and on mobile that is. But we're looking at that right now, and it has complete cross-platform play where if you start playing on your mobile phone, you can launch your PC later and you can continue wherever you left off on your mobile.
Oh.
And that sort of thing is like unprecedented during a time, and people want more and more out of these games. And it's also the game control scheme is also very much like a console game as well. In It's all on a mobile phone,
Mhm.
and it's kind of like mobile game players are demanding more. They want like high quality experiences even more now.
Yes.
So that's what I've noticed, and this is a commentary that I'm giving on. This is my comment on a genre like action or adventure, that sort of genre. But
Mhm.
if you look at other genre like a word game or a puzzle game, you might see a different thing happening.
Oh, okay.
So it goes case by case. But this is one big genre like an action or adventure game where this sort of trend is happening, where people want higher production quality, and they want to see something bigger and better.
Mm. Yes.
But it doesn't necessarily guarantee success, but it will bring it will attract a lot of players, that's for sure.
Okay. Got
Yeah.
it. So also, Varun, do you draw inspiration from other mediums as well? Because I know that you are a big movie buff. So do you do that? Like, do you borrow certain elements from other mediums and try to put into the games that you're designing?
Yeah. So I played, I played enough games throughout my lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
and there's still many games that I want to play, and I want to get deep into. But that being said, when you look at the games that are coming out now, they are basically rehashes of tried and tested design. And every now and then you would come across a remaster of an old game or a remake of an old game, like the Resident Evil 4 example that I gave.
Hmm.
And it's kind of a rare thing to see a completely original and unique idea.
Yes.
And I think the most recent one that I can think of is Disco Elysium. And yeah, that was an interesting attempt at this narrative. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so Disco Elysium is sort of like this. It's a very unique game. It's hard to describe how exactly it is, but
Yes.
yeah, it's sort of like a D&D spin-off where when I say D&D, it means Dungeons and Dragons. It's a famous tabletop game,
Mm-hmm.
and so instead of putting points into attributes like strength and agility, that sort of thing, you put points into different aspects of your psyche or
Oh.
your mental well-being. So you put points into empathy, you become more empathetic, your character becomes more empathetic, that sort of thing
Mm-hmm.
happens. And you get new dialogue options for your character which are more empathetic.
Oh.
And that's sort of an interesting, unique game that was out recently. But those kind of games where like they try something completely different are rare now. And so what I do is I don't really look for games look at games for inspiration, because it's kind of a rare thing now, because a lot of things have been, something that I've already played or I've already seen.
Mm-hmm.
What I do is I look at other genre like movies, other mediums like movies, and I look at what kind of storytelling they do, what kind of feeling I get while I watch it. I try to see like if there's something I can capture that I can use in a game mechanic, or a new way of interacting with characters, that sort of thing.
Oh.
So I do use movies for that sort of expression, but that's not the primary reason That's not the only reason I watch movies. I of course want to see I want to hear interesting stories. I want to see interesting characters and
Mhm.
see how they explore certain themes, that sort of thing too.
Okay. So I have
Yeah,
one last question. Okay, this may
yeah.
be a little, I don't know how to say this, but so do you think that through games we can actually alter the behavior of a person? Because I don't know, like I get to hear stuff about games that like people who play a lot of shooting games, for example, would turn up turn out to be a little aggressive than people who are not playing those kind of games. What's your take on it? I know it's pretty controversial, but I want to know your perspective on that.
Um, so this whole idea of video games make people violent is, has been disputed many times, and it has been proven wrong.
Hmm.
And this was a thing back in the 90s. It was a huge thing back in the 90s, I believe. And Mortal Kombat, the game that you said you played,
Yes.
here's some trivia about that game. So that game was so violent that it created a rating board for video games.
Mm-hmm.
It spawned the creation of a rating board for video games called ESRB, Entertainment Software Rating Board.
Okay.
And so basically, they say they rate the games if it's age appropriate for children to play.
Okay.
So and Mortal Kombat single-handedly did that. And so we have certain things where we have certain rating boards we have these regulations where they make sure that kids, people who are not age appropriate are not playing that kind of game,
Mm-hmm.
and which is not which might not be healthy for them. But in general, also it has been largely disputed and proven wrong that uh, you know video games make people violent or some such narrative.
Got it.
Yeah,
Well, that was last question I had, Varun. Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you for coming onto my podcast and being so patient throughout the conversation. You
yeah,
want
yeah. It was my pleasure.
you want to say anything to my listeners?
Mm, all I want to say is that don't be shy to try any interesting games that you find,
Mhm.
or explore games in general. Keep playing different kinds of games and see what different games are doing. You will find something that you might like,
Mhm.
and you might want to try out. And it might not be, you might have a certain image of video games, but you will find something that will interest you, which are completely different from what you expect from video games.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot, Varun.
no problem.